Welcome to the virtual college fair. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at the same website where you registered. And now I'd like to turn it over to our presenters from Hendrix College. Take it away.
Awesome. Good evening. My name is Beverly Henry Wheeler. I am with Hendrix College. I'm the Regional Director of Admissions, and I'm so delighted to have our VP, which I'll allow him to introduce himself, with me tonight. And so we'll be co-presenting, and I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Castle, and I serve as the Dean of Admission at Hendrix College in Conway, Arkansas. And I'm just so pleased that you're joining us tonight. I'm with you from Conway tonight, and then my friend and colleague Beverly. She is actually based in Texas, so she is joining us from her home in Texas this evening.
We'll go ahead and get started. And Ryan, and I'm putting you on the spot because Ryan I feel like he's a freshman or actually high school student because he's learning about Hendrix. And he's been there. Ryan, how long have you been with us? Since May, right?
Yes, late May, so maybe 5 months or so.
5 months, okay. So I'm putting Ryan on the spot. And Ryan, I have the numbers up, and I was going to see if you could kind of walk us through, but can you kind of give your thoughts on what these numbers look like since you've been at Hendrix and what they mean behind the numbers?
I certainly can. And so Hendrix College is so much more than a set of numbers, but we understand that when you're looking at colleges, sometimes it's easier to start out by grasping some of the numbers, and then we'll get into the storytelling as time progresses. But who we are, we're a school of around 1,100 students with a 10-to-1 student to faculty ratio, and what that means is around 16 students is the average class size for us. So what you can expect with that is it's going to be a community that it's going to be small enough so that you're known, your face is known, your name is known, but it's not so small that everyone's in your business all the time either. So in that regard, it's just an incredibly sized community. We have a really great balance, male-female ratio. So for students identifying as female, around 52%, male 48%. And so for a liberal arts school, that is a nice balance. Many times it really goes one direction pretty far. We love to have students of all different backgrounds represented in this community. And we just think it creates a more rich environment when there are more people around the dinner table from different backgrounds. And so over 40 states are represented, 19 countries are represented in our student body. Over a quarter of our students come from a student of color background. And so just all of those varied experiences coming to the table, it just creates a much better environment for all. Just over a third of our students are scholar athletes. And Hendrix, we are a Division III NCAA school. NCAA being, many think of us as being the smallest of the NCAA divisions, but believe it or not, there are more Division III schools than any of the other divisions. It doesn't mean we want to win any less or compete at less of a level. It just means that our student athletes are seeking to find greater balance between the sport they love and the academics and leadership and involvement for which they're at college.
Awesome. Ryan, I'm actually going to put you on the spot. We didn't rehearse this, But could you give like one sentence definition of community in summing up as we look at the numbers? What does that community for you feel like? Because our students probably haven't visited. I'm sure we probably have parents on here as well. But what would you describe that community? How would you define in one sentence, Hendrix?
One sentence. Are you going to ring a bell or hit the
I
buzzer if I go?
I am. So if you go over, you're in trouble.
To me, it means trust. It means collegiality. It means a shared experience that you're going to have with students in this environment. We are a residential community. You will live on campus. Most of the faculty and staff live in our town. You're not just going to get to know students your age. You're going to get to know the children in our community. You're going to get to know the retired professors who remain in our community. This is a multi-generational experience that you will have.
Awesome. See, I didn't ring the bell on you.
And I
So
went over, I acknowledge it.
well, awesome, awesome. And Ryan and I probably both will tackle this, but I'll start because if anything, I want you to receive from our presentation, and I still like to talk on the word community. And I think a community is connections. I think the students that you'll be with, it's a connection. The professors is a connection. And I will even say in our cafeteria, the cafeteria workers are amazingly connected to our students, knowing them by name, knowing their activities, being involved in their activities. And what I really love is that our students have an opportunity to connect even with administration, like the president. It's not unusual to see our president having lunch in the cafeteria and talking with students. In that sense, for me, it ties us in. So that's where that connection, community. I feel like I'm doing C's tonight, Ryan, but I think those two words are very important. And I think the organizations at Hendrix allows our students to get involved. And one of the things that I always say to students when you're looking for a fit, yes, you want to look at academics, that's important, but you want to go beyond the academics and see what things you can get involved in. And I do challenge my students. I say, hey, you know what? You probably had to stick to one or two, maybe three activities like band, for example, or a sport when you were in high school. But what I love about Hendrix, you don't have to stick to that the whole 4 years you're there. You can try an organization. We have a wonderful club that meets at 4 o'clock on Fridays when school is in and all our students are back. And I've seen students just walk by and join the club with the swords. They're not using real swords, so mom and dad don't despair. But I like the fact that the organizations are open. Students can try something one semester or 1 week, or they can switch. But again, I think the importance is that students should have the opportunity to connect with other people. And again, there goes that connect word. And Ryan mentioned about residential life, and the majority of our students do live on campus. We think it's important because you're able to connect with upperclassmen, incoming freshmen, sophomores, juniors. You have representation with individuals throughout those numbers we were talking about. So we want you to think at Hendrix, there's opportunity for exploration, finding out what's there, getting involved, getting connected with it, but by doing it with a community. And I'm putting Ryan on the spot. He didn't say this, but Ryan, don't you have a senior this year?
I do. I have my oldest is a high school senior, and she has submitted her college applications and so what it has allowed for me is to view this college search process in such a different way, and so I really do know that when we are through it and she has chosen her college, I'll be able to approach my work in a much different way. I do have to tell you, Beverly and I were talking earlier, we just started reading applications. And I really believe, because now I'm in a role of dad, that the way I read applications is even different than what it was before, because I'm, starting to think about, the personal connection that I have here.
And I brought that in for Ryan to mention, because even as he was saying, as we're reading applications, one of the things that I'm looking at, which I hadn't in the past, how do I see the student? What do I see the student doing on our campus? And this is besides the major. So it's been really exciting to read through an application, looking and thinking about the organizations that are on campus and the opportunities for our students to get involved. And I'm looking at their resume, thinking about Hendrix. And Ryan, because of you, I'm making notes saying, I see them here. I see them here. I see them in theater. I see them with some of our clubs on campus. And it's been exciting to review, knowing that the possibility for students to get connected to Hendrix is available. And so this moves us into engaged learning. And I think for me, when I think about engaged learning, it goes beyond the books. That's what I'll say. It goes beyond just the knowledge base. But if I could give you a visual, it's a little kid sitting down with mud, and they're getting their hands in the mud, and they're shaping something, and they're feeling the coal of the mud. They're feeling just the sliminess of the mud, to be honest with you. And to me, engaged learning is where the students actually get their hands dirty. They are no longer just sitting in the classroom, having great conversation now with our professors, but taking what they have learned in the classroom, and now they're getting the opportunity to see, how does that look in the real world? How does that look if I talk about, I want to serve individuals, and then I get the opportunity to go maybe in Arkansas. We've had students come to Texas when Harvey hit. They actually came during their spring break and help families pick up trash, move beds and mattresses that had gotten soaked, and move the couches to in order for the garbage people to pick it up. So I love the opportunity with these particular programs, the Murphy program and the Miller Center program, those students who have a passion for literature and language, that they don't just sit in class. In one of my classes in college, Ryan, I don't know how yours was, but I went to a little bit larger university than Hendrix. And our way of learning language is that it was 10 sections, and we each had an individual professor. We listened in class, and then we had a departmental exam that was given by those professors, but it was never the engagement of really knowing where the language came from, being exposed to the culture, seeing how that intertwines with the language. And that's what's fascinating with me, that Hendrix allows our students to have that opportunity. And the same with the Miller Center. We have those interested in vocation, as far as ethics and their calling, philosophy. They will have those opportunities to explore and to experience. I think that's the word we're looking for, experience their learning from that. Ryan, do you have anything to add to that?
But just this really speaks to the interdisciplinary nature of what you can expect. At Hendrix, you certainly will choose a major, and you'll develop an expertise in that major, but you'll study a wide variety of different topics as well. And as Beverly mentioned, outside of the classroom, in addition to that, and that's really the hallmark of the liberal arts experience that we offer, and ways in which you will be changed by being at Hendrix, and in turn, Hendrix will be changed because of your presence here.
Wow, that's well said. That is so true. That is so true. Thank you for saying that, Ryan. I think if if I was asked a question, and I think Ryan, if you were asked a question, what is one of the unique programs at Hendrix that makes us stand out from, we have 40 CTCL, 40 plus CTCL schools, which are all wonderful and all unique within themselves. I think Ryan and I both would say our Odyssey program. And for me, Ryan, when I first came to Hendrix, I did not understand Odyssey. I was like, what is it? Why are students involved in this? And I found out that really, for me, the question that I started asking so I could understand Odyssey, if you had a goal, if you had an opportunity to transform either your life, someone else's life, your community, or the world, and there was no limit to your idea, to your dreams, what would it be? What would be that idea? Some students have had ideas about having filtrated water in third world countries, or some students have had an idea, which I think is phenomenal, is going to Thailand and using bugs for protein. Now, those seem far fetched and way out there, but it was also taking pictures of cats or going to Comic Con to see how individuals, which I like this one, Ryan. I don't know if they would ever let me go as an advisor, but if I could go, I would love to go to Comic Con and study psychology, the psychology of fans. So Odyssey to me is the program that makes us stand out. And nuts and bolts of it, every student has the opportunity to do at least three of these major projects. They get to do more, but they start with three. The university pays for it. And Ryan, can I tell you this one? And then I want to ask you about your favorite Odyssey program. Mine is a student got to go to Switzerland to taste chocolate. And I was talking, I was on a panel, and I was like, literally stopped the panel, Ryan, and said, the university paid for you to go a semester to Switzerland to taste chocolate. And she said, yes, ma'am. And I was like, what was your major? And she was pre-med. So I'm still floored by that, Ryan. What about you? What was your Odyssey experience, the one that kind of stood out for you?
Well, keep in mind, I am new to Hendrix, and I have so much more yet to learn. But I remember one of my well, it was my very first visit to Hendrix. I was staying on campus, and I was walking around campus in the evening, and I kept seeing all these shining eyes at me. I thought, Those are cats." And now I don't know if you all are cat people. I can't say we have. I don't want you to be alarmed by this if you're not a cat person, but we have a community of cats that live on campus, maybe a dozen or two, and so we're in a neighborhood, and there's a neighborhood that surrounds us, and what would happen is that cats would come from the neighborhood and onto campus, and we have a caring community, and so people would care for these cats and feed them. And what tends to happen with cats, they tend to make more cats. And so we had a student a number of years back who identified this scenario and said, I'm going to do something about it. So she made an observation, she identified a need, and she did something about it. And that's what the Odyssey experience is. So what she did is she initiated a campaign to raise awareness for this cat community, as well as a campaign to raise funds to help with the health care and the continued upkeep and the spay and neutering of the cats, so they didn't keep creating more cats. And a result of this has just, it's been known as the Hendrix cats. And in recent history as well, a student, she actually had a book published about the cats at Hendrix, and you can buy it on Amazon if you want. So to me, it's just, you could have these worldwide experiences, whether it be chocolate in Europe, or clean water filtration systems in a developing country, or right here on our own home. And so this Odyssey can take you so many directions. And that's what Odyssey is. It's a journey. Now, one thing I want to make sure students know is that if you don't have that big idea right now, there's a guided journey for you.
Mhm.
If I was a high school student and someone said you need to come in with an idea to change the world, I would have said thank you very much, but I don't know that I am ready to change the world yet. We have faculty members who will guide you through this journey. And so we do have some predefined Odyssey experiences for you. So if you're not at that point where you have this grand idea that's going to change the world, either the big level or your community level, please don't worry about that. We will help you navigate this journey.
Awesome. Ryan, I thank you for saying that because I think a lot of times students, when they think of the possibility, their mind kind of freezes. And what I love about Hendrix, here we go, connection and community, is that professors are ready and they're ready to sit down with you and to actually help you probe and think and help you come up with these ideas. And the thing that I think you said, Ryan, that I really agree with is not so much the grand idea. It's so much that you have an idea and you have an opportunity to implement it with the Odyssey program. We always get the question with Odyssey, can you do study abroad? Yes. And can you do research? And the answer is yes. And you can see both global awareness and undergraduate research. So be assured that you'll have opportunities through the program. So I think that's what makes us stand out and makes us unique. The opportunity for students to explore and go on a journey throughout the time that they're at Hendrix. So, Ryan, we may have some parents on here tonight, and they're going to ask the question, this Odyssey program stuff sounds good, classes sound good, but I'm not sending my child to be a career student. So, what do you do for the students to prepare them to get out? I'm speaking for parents, and I'm not a parent. I'm sure, Ryan, you have that question when you go and visit as well.
Uh,
So,
that's exactly right. And we have an amazing career services office made up of some caring professionals who want to work with you from day one. Now, I know that there are some colleges where the career office may not work with the student until maybe uh, junior year or even senior year, perhaps. But I tell you, knowing the staff in our career services office, they would love nothing more than if, even during your orientation, or your first week of classes, that you just go into their office and say, hey, I'm Ryan. I'm new here at Hendrix. Tell me about what goes on here. So I really encourage students you do that. And I'm the more timid type. I would not be likely to do that at all. But start working with this group of professionals from day one. They will help you with resume development, practice interview skills, all of well, our sophomores in the middle of the year, we have an opportunity for you to come back a little bit early in the spring semester and go through a career term. And that's where Hendrix alumni or parents or just friends of the college will come, and they will do small group mentoring, larger group panels, one-on-one work with students, maybe an etiquette dinner, a networking fair. And that's the thing about Hendrix. We're a small school, but when you start talking about Hendrix in the community, people seem to come out of the woodwork having some association with the place. And so many of our students are um, doing internships at some corporations or organizations they set aside just for Hendrix students. And many times those internships will result in that first career or that first job out of college. So parents, our goal is not for them your students, to go back and live at home with you. We want them to launch, and they do. And we graduate, um, you know, gainfully employed individuals who make very positive contributions to society.
awesome. Thank you, Ryan. We will move forward and This is just a quick clip so you can see some of the companies that target our students at Hendrix. I'm sure you've heard of Ernest & Young. If you're not from Arkansas, um, some of the companies are in Arkansas and some are national. And what we try to do is prepare our students to go broad, to reach broadly with their experiences at Hendrix so they can be prepared to go to grad school if they desire, medical school, law school, or actually to start their career. And that's the thing that I encourage families when you're looking at institutions. You also want to look at the Career Service Center. You want to see what their philosophy is. Does it start with freshman year or does it start senior year? What are they doing in between to prepare students? And then ultimately, and this is why I left this slide up or put it in here, Ryan, is to say, what are companies saying about Hendrix grads? And Ryan, I know you've been there 5 months, but I'm sure you've had opportunity with alums and companies. Can you just give us like a few sentences? What are companies saying about Hendrix grads? What have you heard?
Yes, so in my interaction with the Career Services Office and also some of the alums who have come to introduce themselves to me and in my early days at Hendrix, um, the report back is we're seeking students who know how to think and know how to process and don't necessarily need a book of instructions or a recipe you might call it. We want students who can synthesize, who can communicate, and that's what you're going to get at a strong liberal arts environment like Hendrix. It's it's wonderful to have great academic knowledge if you're an expert in your major, but if you can't communicate what you know, and if you can't apply that to areas outside of your major, we sometimes wonder what's the worth of that. And at Hendrix, you will leave here with that full worth because you will have had these many different experiences.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan, for answering that. And of course, I mentioned the opportunity for grad school and professional school, and that's definitely available for our students. And you see the percentage getting accepted into law school, into medical school. And we just wanted to throw this slide up there for you to see it, but there's so much more behind that in preparation for our students to do that. So Ryan, as we are getting close to opportunity to ask questions, I wanted to ask if I'm interested in applying to Hendrix, what do I do? And you said you were the Dean of Admissions, so I think I'm gonna throw that one to you.
Yes, so I'd better know how to talk about this. Um, yeah, well, we would love for you to apply to Hendrix, and we do our best to make this process as straightforward as possible. I love the idea of joy, and I want this to be as joyful of a process as possible for you. And so, some general advice is if you're moving through this college application process and it has no joy for you, it has no happiness, I want you to take a step back, talk to a trusted mentor, talk to friends, and just say, why is this not um, a happier experience for me? So that's just some general advice I want to start with. About there are two different ways to apply to Hendrix. And the more common way, as you might say, is the Common App. And so the Common Application, if you're not familiar with that, it is an application that over 800 colleges accept. Please don't apply to 800 colleges, but let's say you apply to 8 colleges. And if all 8 of us accept the Common App, instead of doing 8 separate applications, you're doing one and sending it 8 different directions. Now, we also have the Hendrix College app, and that's accessible at hendrix.edu/apply. We accept either one, and there you don't have better chances of admission or scholarship of one over another. So those are the two different paths to get to Hendrix. Now, what are some of the ways in which we review applications? I mentioned to Beverly earlier that in the last few days, we've started reading applications for seniors and thinking about who we want to invite into this community. Well, certainly we are looking at the transcript. We want to be confident that a student can come and graduate in 4 years. Uh, we're looking at the curriculum you've taken. How have you challenged yourself in high school? What are your grades? And notice I didn't just say GPA at the bottom of the transcript. Sure, we would all love that GPA to be high, but we're more interested in what goes into that overall number. What are your grade trends? Maybe you started high school kind of rough, but you improve. That's showing great upward momentum. Um, it's not as great if you're going downhill, but sometimes though there's a great reason for that. So don't be afraid to get out in front of a story. So if you have some spots in your transcript that may not be the best, don't hesitate to share with us what was going on. Maybe in the middle of your high school experience, you had a sick relative come live with you. And instead of being a happy-go-lucky teenager, your life turned into caretaker mode, and that's going to affect what you're doing in the classroom. And so that transcript is important, but honestly, it's pretty boring. I love the essay because the essay is a chance for us to really get a glimpse of who you are. Now, of course, we're asking ourselves, can this student effectively communicate in writing? But beyond that, we're asking, would this student be a good teammate, a good lab partner? I mentioned earlier, my oldest is applying to college. I'm starting to ask the question, would I want this student as my child's roommate at Hendrix or not? Now, certainly if I say not, that doesn't mean you're not being admitted, but it started entering my mind a little bit more. So we think,
Ryan, I'm gonna have to watch you now.
no, you can trust me. So that essay is important. Try to think about your story. Don't let it be a narrative of all your great classes and how smart you are. We see your transcript for that. Also, don't let it be a paragraph version of your activity list or your resume, um, because we see your activity list and or your resume for that. And moving on to that bullet point, your activity list should be anything you've done in high school that's productive. Now, it doesn't just have to be school-related activities. It could be community service. It could be a part-time job. It could be a family responsibility. So maybe it's your job to keep the lawn mowed once a week, or perhaps it's your role to take little sister to swim practice 3 times a week. Parents, you're out there now getting ideas about things you can have your students do they'll add to their activity list. But those are just some of the things that we look at, because we want to invite students who have already demonstrated a commitment to leading others and serving others, and that list is important to us. We love to read a letter of recommendation, but it is optional. We will read files without a letter of recommendation because we realize that's out of your control. You could be as nice as you want to a teacher or a counselor, but if their plate is full, especially this year as they're trying to navigate 2 different modes of instruction in this COVID era, if you don't have a letter of recommendation submitted, we will read your application without it. And then test scores. Those are optional. And on your application, you will declare whether you want test scores reviewed for admission or not. And now, something I want to highlight is Hendrix, we're a pre-COVID test optional school. Many colleges around the country are moving to test optional right now because they have to, because so many of these tests have been canceled. But we did choose before this COVID year. This is actually our 2nd year of being test optional. So if you feel like your test scores are a reflection of who you are as a student, submit them. But if you just feel like you want to do better things on a Saturday morning, then bubble in test scan sheets, apply test optional, and that's completely fine. We don't question why you're test optional. We also don't assume your scores are bad. So all of those items together give us the challenging task of deciding who to invite into our community. The first person to read your application will be your territory representative. And you at Hendrix, all of you will have an admission counselor. and we divide it up by area of the country or world. So for example, I serve as the admission counselor to students from California. Beverly serves as the admission rep to students from Texas. And so identify who your admission counselor is and reach out to them. Another piece I sometimes joke when I'm saying this, but I'm kind of serious. If you've gotten to know a student as an admission rep, if you've gotten to know a student along the way, it's much easier to recommend admission.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to fast forward, but can you do me a favor, Ryan, and kind of tie in admissions with the tuition advantage, and then we're going to take a couple minutes and answer some of your questions. So if you want to drop some questions in the chat, that would be great.
Yes, certainly.
So how does the admissions process tie into tuition advantage?
Right. Well, something we're really proud to offer is this idea of a tuition advantage. And so we know that there are going to be colleges out there that at least the published tuition rate is going to look much, much lower than Hendrix. We're a private school. We do not benefit from state funding the way some public flagship colleges do. And so for students who are admitted to Hendrix, we commit that you will not pay more for tuition than the published amount at your home flagship institution. And so for those of us in Arkansas, that would be the University of Arkansas's published rate. Beverly students would be UT Austin. For me, it would be UC Berkeley. So we offer that tuition advantage. Now, something else I want to say is that just maybe 2 weeks ago, Hendrix College announced the courageous decision that we're actually lowering tuition. So for the students entering for the first time in the fall of 2021, our tuition has gone down by a third. Now we recognize that costs are a concern, and we wanted to do something to say to you all, we hear you, we're listening, and we're leading this conversation around college costs. And so we want more students' eyes to be open to Hendrix and the very competitive financial aid and scholarship programs that we offer. And some students we know won't even look at a school because of that published amount. And so we're really pleased to have made this decision and offer the tuition advantage program.
Awesome. On that note, Ryan, if we're going to ask the audience if you would like to drop your questions in the chat, we will take a couple before we end in the next couple of minutes. So I did see a comment, and I thank you for that comment about the Odyssey program, about Mia Wolf. That was pretty cool. We have a question, Ryan, and it says, how is the pre-med program? Would you like to? Okay.
I will tackle that. So Sarah, I am so pleased that you called it a pre-med program and not a pre-med major. Because sometimes when students say, I want my major to be pre-med or pre-law, I'll look at them and say, you don't want the word pre on your diploma, do you? So no, the pre-med path is a program. It's a pathway of preparation for medical school. And you can combine that with really any major you like. Many students think that to go to medical school that you have to be a biology major or a chemistry major. And I'm saying this as someone who majored in biology. Do you know how boring that group of that med school class could be if they were all biology majors? I say that in the nicest way possible. Again, that just speaks back to that diversity. And so, you also mentioned the neuroscience major, pairing that with the pre-med program, the pre-med path. I think that would be fantastic. And I think what you'll discover is with pre-med, Hendrix students applying to med school, our admit rate is so much higher, almost double as high as the national average for pre-medical acceptance. And with neuroscience specifically, that is an interdisciplinary major between the biology department and the psychology department. And in And in our science hall, Reynolds, within the neuroscience area, we have a sleep lab. And so those are just some really practical ways in which you can have that hands-on experience along with, the academic piece as well. You also mentioned classics, Latin, Greek. My goodness, those languages, that background is going to help you so much as you're navigating your curriculum in medical school. Before I was in a college admission role, I was a high school teacher. I taught science, I taught anatomy and physiology, and so much of that discipline is built upon Latin and Greek derivatives. And so I can't wait to meet you, Sarah, because your academic path is just going to be so great, and it's going to blend together so well.
Excellent. And Ryan, we have a couple minutes, and I want to give you an opportunity. What piece of advice uh, could you give this group on behalf of Hendrix and just your experience with working with students? What would you tell them as they're starting this admissions process and looking at schools?
So many different thoughts. I might share more than one. Hopefully, we don't get turned off here. Right? I hope I don't go too long. But this is your students. This is your search, and if your peers are asking you, where are you applying, where are you considering, if you're not comfortable sharing that, or if try to talk to a school counselor or a teacher or a parent about a response you can offer, because so many times, well, maybe not so many times, but I've seen before, let's say a student says, I'm going to Hendrix College, and you're in Montana and none of your friends have heard of Hendrix College. Sometimes they're going to have things to say about that. And 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 so the idea of just because you haven't heard of a college doesn't mean it's not an incredible experience. And so think about how much you want to share about your college search with others, and also think about how much you want your parents or guardians to share about your college search process. um, because I've seen so many parents, and parents will do it to me. Well, where is Abby applying? And sometimes I feel comfortable telling them, and sometimes I don't, because that is her business. And so think about how you want to navigate those conversations. And I'll share one more piece. Families, have a candid conversation about what you're not only able, but what you're willing to pay for the college experience. Now, it shouldn't stop you from applying to certain colleges, because we can many times we'll come through with a great financial aid and scholarship package, but don't wait until April to have that conversation, because I have seen in my role as an admission rep and a college counselor at the high school level, I've seen so many students fall in love with their dream college, they're admitted, and then it's April when a parent says, yeah, but we're not paying that much for you to go. Again, it might not have mean the student wouldn't have applied there, but at least there's this realistic expectation that is shared with the family about what the family is able and willing to pay for the college experience.
Ryan, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think just practical, wise advice. And for me, I would just tell the families to come together and talk. Parents listen, students share, and it's their journey. And Ryan is a parent. I don't have children, but that's the advice that I would give. Though you would love for them to maybe go to your alma mater, it might not be a fit for them, and that's okay. But what we want, and I think Hendrix, our philosophy is that we want the student to find the best fit for them. And sometimes that fit may be off the beaten path, something that's never been heard of. And that's where we want your students to look. So give Hendrix a try. Thank y'all for attending tonight.
Yeah. We'll see you on campus.
Thank you both so much for your presentation, and thank you everyone for joining us. When you go to close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. Also, this was just one of many sessions being hosted, so be sure to check out the full schedule and sign up for additional sessions. In about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all of the other sessions recordings online at the same website where you registered. Thank you. Bye now.